My name is Madeline Collins. I'm 33 years old, and until recently, I was the definition of invisible. At least, that's what my family wanted me to believe. I always thought hard work and loyalty were what mattered most in life. I dedicated myself to my marketing career at Pinnacle Marketing Group in Denver. Sent birthday cards without fail. Showed up to every family gathering with a smile, and kept my opinions to myself when my younger sister Ashley was praised for her latest social media achievement. That was just how things worked in the Collins family. I was the reliable one, the steady one, the one who would always be there. But standing in the marble hallway of Pinnacle's Denver office that fateful day, mascara streaking down my face and my breath coming in ragged gasps, I realized something profound. What my family had always perceived as my greatest weakness, my willingness to bend without breaking, was actually my greatest strength. And now, as I heard the desperate footsteps of my CEO racing after me, begging me to reconsider, I knew I had finally found my voice. What they all thought was my failure was actually the moment I took back my power. Let me show you how I flipped the script and made them regret ever underestimating Madeline Collins. Growing up in our comfortable suburban Denver home, I learned early on what my role was supposed to be. Ashley, my sister, was the golden child. 4 years younger at 29, she was everything I wasn't. Outgoing, naturally beautiful, and unapologetically ambitious. Her Instagram following had grown to impressive numbers, and she never let anyone forget it. Every family dinner became a stage for her latest achievements. "Did you see Ashley's collaboration with that skincare brand?" My mother Linda would gush, passing the potatoes without even glancing my way. 50,000 likes in just 2 hours, can you believe it? My father Robert would beam with pride. "That's our girl. Always knew she had something special." I'd smile and nod, making appropriate sounds of admiration while silently adding another promotion or project success to my mental list of accomplishments that would never be acknowledged. The pattern was established long before Ashley married Chad, but her investment banker husband only reinforced the family dynamic. "So, Madeline," Chad would say during holiday gatherings at Oakwood Country Club, swirling his expensive scotch. "Still pushing papers at that marketing firm? You know, if you'd invested in cryptocurrency when I told you to, you might actually have something to show for yourself by now." The subtle digs were constant, but it was the financial exploitation that truly crossed the line. "Maddie, I'm in a bind," Ashley had said over the phone last June, her voice taking on that pleading quality she'd perfected since childhood. "The wedding venue is demanding another deposit, and we're just a little short this month with Chad's bonus being delayed." I knew what was coming next. "Could you possibly loan us a little something? Just until next month? 15,000 would cover it." I had hesitated, thinking of my carefully built savings account. "It's just that the Rosewood Ballroom is so perfect, and you know how important this day is to me." In the background, I could hear her tapping away at her keyboard, probably posting another perfectly filtered photo while simultaneously extracting money from her reliable big sister. "Of course," I'd said, already pulling up my banking app. "I'll transfer it right now." That $15,000 joined a long list of loans that had somehow never found their way back to my account. Money for Ashley's car repairs, for her apartment security deposit, for her brand-building retreat in Bali. I kept a meticulous record of every cent, though I told myself it didn't matter. Family helped family. That's what I believed. "You're just too sensitive. Madeline," my mother would say whenever I gently broached the subject of repayment, "we're all joking around. Don't make things awkward." "Honestly, Maddie, I don't even remember borrowing money for that," Ashley would claim, despite the text messages and bank transfers proving otherwise. "You're imagining things again." And inevitably, my parents would side with Ashley, leaving me feeling gaslighted and confused. Was I really keeping score too carefully? Was I being petty about money when my sister clearly needed it more than I did? I wanted peace. I wanted their approval. I wanted to be the bigger person. So I swallowed my resentment and continued to play my assigned role in the family drama. But families have secrets, and I had the biggest secret of all. While I smiled and nodded through family gatherings where I was treated as an afterthought, I was building something extraordinary. In 2021, I had launched Cozy Crafts LLC, an e-commerce store specializing in handmade goods. What began as a side hustle born from my marketing expertise and passion for artisanal crafts had exploded beyond my wildest expectations. I deliberately kept my growing success hidden from my family. At first, it was because I wanted to establish myself before facing their inevitable criticism. Later, as the business flourished, I realized that my financial independence was a precious thing, something that might disappear if they knew the truth. By 2023, my net worth had quietly grown to $2.3 million. I had diversified into real estate, becoming a silent partner in 3 local restaurants that were thriving in Denver's competitive culinary scene. I even held patent royalties from a marketing technology app I'd helped develop with Cascade Technologies, all while driving my modest 2015 Honda Civic to family gatherings where Chad would make comments about my sensible lifestyle choices. "At least Madeline knows her limitations," he'd say with a smirk, as if my frugality was a character flaw rather than a deliberate choice. If only they knew that I could have bought their house with cash. I had almost reached a place of peace with the arrangement. Let them believe what they wanted. My success was mine alone, untainted by their judgment or demands. But then came the event that shattered everything, the moment that forced me to recognize I couldn't maintain this double life any longer. It happened at the Rosewood Country Club during a family reunion on September 10th, 2023. Over 50 relatives had gathered to celebrate my grandfather's birthday. Though he had passed away 2 years prior, the Collins family never missed an opportunity for a social gathering, especially one where they could showcase their prosperity to extended family. I was standing near the champagne fountain, making small talk with my cousin Emma, when I overheard my name in a heated conversation between my parents. "We need to talk to Madeline about the inheritance," my father was saying in a hushed tone that wasn't quite hushed enough. "She's being unreasonable." "She's always been difficult," my mother replied, "but this is taking it too far. That money was never meant for her to waste." My stomach tightened. They were talking about my grandmother's inheritance, $25,000 she had specifically left to me in her will, with a handwritten note that said, "For Madeline's dreams, whatever they may be." It had been one of the few times in my life I'd felt truly seen by a family member. I had used that money as seed capital for Cozy Crafts, turning my grandmother's gift into a thriving business. It was perhaps the best investment I'd ever made, honoring her memory with every milestone I achieved. But apparently, my parents had other ideas about how that money should have been spent. Before I could slip away, my mother spotted me and marched over, my father trailing behind with an uncomfortable expression. "Madeline, we need to discuss something," she announced, loud enough that heads turned in our direction. "It's about your grandmother's money." "Mom, can we talk about this later?" I whispered, acutely aware of the curious eyes now focused on our little group. "No, this has gone on long enough," she insisted, her voice rising. "That inheritance was meant for family purposes, not for you to waste on whatever hobby you've been throwing money at." My face burned. Grandma specifically left that money to me, for my dreams. It wasn't a family fund. "Don't be selfish," my father interjected. "Ashley's business needs capital, and that money could make a real difference." "Ashley's business?" I repeated incredulously. "Her Instagram account needs a $25,000 investment?" "She's launching a lifestyle brand," my mother snapped. "Something with actual potential, not like whatever you've been doing with your time." People were openly staring now. My cousin Emma looked mortified on my behalf. Even the family lawyer, who happened to be in attendance, seemed uncomfortable with the public nature of this confrontation. "I used that money exactly as Grandma intended," I said quietly, trying to maintain my dignity. "It was my inheritance, and I honored her wishes." "That money was never meant for you," my mother hissed, her perfect makeup doing nothing to soften the cruelty in her expression. "It's for Ashley's business. She's the one with real talent in this family." From the corner of my eye, I could see Ashley standing a few feet away, listening to the entire exchange. Instead of intervening or showing any discomfort at being the cause of this humiliation, she was smirking, whispering to Chad. "See?" I heard her say. "Nobody believes in you." Something broke inside me at that moment, not in a way that made me collapse or cry, but in a way that finally set me free. The chains of obligation and the desperate need for approval that had bound me to this toxic dynamic for 33 years simply dissolved. Without another word, I set down my champagne glass and walked out of the country club, ignoring my mother's demands that I come back and stop being dramatic. In my car, my perfectly adequate Honda Civic that had been the subject of so many condescending comments, I sat with my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I was shaking, not with sorrow but with a cold, clarifying anger I had never allowed myself to feel before. My hands were shaking, I whispered to myself, but not because I was afraid, because I was finally seeing clearly. How had they made me feel so small for so long? How had I let them? At 9:15 p.m., my phone rang. My mother's name flashed on the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Mom," I said before she could launch into whatever lecture she had prepared. "Grandma wanted me to have that money for my dreams. That's exactly how I used it. I respected her wishes." "Don't start with that nonsense again," she replied coldly. "You need to understand your place in this family. Madeline, you're not our priority." "Not their priority." The words echoed in my mind as I ended the call without responding. I drove home in silence. No music, no podcasts, just the sound of my own breathing as my mind worked through decades of manipulation and emotional abuse. By the time I pulled into my apartment complex, I had made a decision. This ends now. The next morning, I went to work as usual, maintaining the facade of normalcy while my mind raced with plans. That evening, I spread out all my financial records on my dining table, bank statements, investment portfolios, business projections, property deeds, the evidence of my secret life. I also pulled up text messages from family members, the requests for money, the gaslighting when I asked for repayment, the subtle and not so subtle put-downs. I took screenshots, printed emails, compiled a digital and paper trail of years of emotional and financial manipulation. On October 5th, I walked into the offices of Whitfield Legal Group and retained Jessica Whitfield herself, one of Denver's most respected attorneys specializing in family law and financial disputes. "I need to protect myself," I told her, sliding a folder across her immaculate desk. "And I need to reclaim what's rightfully mine." As Jessica reviewed the documents, her eyebrows rose higher and higher. "Ms. Collins," she said finally, "you've built quite an impressive empire while being systematically exploited by your family. What exactly are you hoping to achieve here?" I considered her question carefully before answering. Justice, restitution, and most importantly, recognition of the truth. I don't want revenge. I want them to see me, really see me, for once. Jessica nodded thoughtfully. "We can work with that, but I should warn you, family disputes like this often get messy. Are you prepared for the fallout?" I thought about years of being the family doormat, of watching Ashley being handed opportunities and praise while I worked twice as hard for a fraction of the recognition. "I'm ready," I said firmly. Over the next few weeks, I continued my double life, dependable Madeline at family functions, secretly powerful businesswoman everywhere else, all while methodically building my case with Jessica's guidance. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. Ashley and Chad had announced their engagement. Despite having been married for years, they wanted a proper ceremony now that Chad had been promoted, and a lavish engagement party was scheduled for November 18th at the Belmont Plaza in Chicago. The entire extended family would be present, along with Chad's banking colleagues and Ashley's influencer connections. It was the ideal stage for my long overdue revelation. As the date approached, I found an unexpected ally in my boss at Pinnacle Marketing Group. Thomas Wilson, the company's CEO, had always been supportive of my career, but I'd never shared my family troubles with him. When I finally confided the situation and my plans to address it, his reaction surprised me. "I've suspected something like this for years," he admitted. "Ashley has called this office multiple times trying to undermine your position here. She even suggested once that you were taking credit for her ideas." My shock must have been evident because Thomas quickly continued, "I never believed her. Of course, your work speaks for itself, but I've seen how this has affected you, even though you've tried to hide it." "She tried to sabotage my career?" I asked, stunned by this new revelation. Thomas nodded grimly. "Several times. I kept it from you because I didn't want to add to your burden, but perhaps that was a mistake." "No," I said slowly. "You were protecting me in your own way, but now I need to protect myself." "Whatever you need," Thomas assured me. "Whether it's time off, a statement from me about your work, anything, you have my full support." His words meant more than he could know. For the first time in my adult life, I felt truly validated by someone whose opinion I respected. The night of Ashley's engagement party arrived crisp and clear. The Belmont Plaza was decked out in Ashley's signature pink and gold color scheme, with professionally arranged flowers on every surface and a champagne tower that must have cost thousands. I arrived exactly 15 minutes after the scheduled start time, knowing Ashley would want to make her grand entrance to a full room. I had never spent much on designer clothing, preferring to invest my money rather than display it, but for this occasion, I had purchased a stunning midnight blue gown that accentuated my figure and made my eyes appear almost luminous. My hair was styled in elegant waves, and my makeup was flawless, not my usual understated look, but something that commanded attention. When I walked into the crystal ballroom, conversations paused. People who had always looked past me suddenly saw me. I caught my mother's surprised expression, my father's momentary confusion, and Ashley's quick flash of annoyance at having attention diverted from her special night. "Madeline," my mother said as I approached, "that's quite a dress. Special occasion?" The condescension in her tone was so familiar, it almost made me smile. "You could say that," I replied calmly. "Tonight is very special indeed." I mingled for the next hour, making small talk and accepting compliments on my appearance with gracious thanks. All the while, I was acutely aware of the USB drive in my clutch purse and the presentation that had been preloaded onto the venue's AV system. At precisely 8:30 p.m., when the party was in full swing, and Ashley had already made her tearful speech about finding her soulmate, again, I gave a slight nod to the event coordinator I had quietly hired. The lights dimmed slightly, and the large projection screen descended from the ceiling at the front of the ballroom. Conversations faltered as people turned to see what was happening. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, my voice strong and clear as I moved to stand beside the screen, "I'd like to share something with you all tonight, a story about family, truth, and finding your own worth." Ashley's face contorted with confusion and anger. "Madeline, what are you doing? This isn't the time for—" "It's exactly the time," I interrupted gently. "Please, just a few minutes of your special night. I think you'll find it illuminating." Before she could protest further, the screen came to life, displaying a family photo from Christmas 3 years ago. We all looked happy. The perfect Collins family unit. "This is the image we've presented to the world," I began. "The successful Collins family, but images can be deceiving." With a click of the remote in my hand, the screen changed to display a text message thread. Ashley asking for the $15,000 loan for her wedding, promising to repay it next month. "This loan from June 12, 2022, is just one of many that were never repaid," I explained, my voice steady despite the gasps from the audience. "In total, I've provided over $43,000 in loans to my sister over the past 5 years, loans that were never intended to be repaid." I clicked through to the next slide, showing bank records that proved my claims, then another slide, showing emails between my parents discussing how to redirect my grandmother's inheritance to Ashley. "Madeline," my mother hissed, rising from her seat, her face drained of color. "This isn't what you think." "It's exactly what I think. Mom," I replied, my voice gentle but firm. You've been manipulating me financially and emotionally for years. All of you have. The next slide showed a direct quote from Ashley's text to Chad. She's just jealous because she can't keep up. She'll never be anything more than our personal ATM. Ashley stood up, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. This is all fake. You're lying. Every document I'm showing has been verified by legal counsel, I responded calmly. But that's not the most interesting part of this story. With another click, the screen displayed my business registration for Cozy Crafts LLC, followed by revenue charts showing its meteoric growth, then property deeds, investment portfolios, and finally, my current net worth. The room fell completely silent. That $25,000 inheritance that Grandma specifically left for me? I used it as seed money for a business that now generates over $3 million in annual revenue. I own 3 properties in Denver. I'm a silent partner in 3 successful restaurants, and I hold multiple technology patents. I let that sink in before continuing. All while you were mocking my sensible lifestyle choices and treating me as if I was the family failure. My father stood up now, approaching me with his hands raised in a placating gesture. Sweetheart, let's talk privately after the party. This isn't the place. This is exactly the place, Dad, I said firmly. For years, you've all humiliated me publicly. You've dismissed my achievements, belittled my choices, and treated me like I was less than. Tonight, I'm simply sharing the truth, in front of the same audience you've been performing for. From the side of the room, my Aunt Margaret rose to her feet. I always thought something was off about how they treated you. Madeline, I'm so proud of what you've accomplished. Her words opened a floodgate. Suddenly, other relatives were standing, offering support, expressing their shock at what they'd witnessed. Ashley's face had turned from anger to panic as she watched her carefully cultivated image crumbling before her eyes. Chad looked stunned, his financial prowess suddenly dwarfed by his sister-in-law's quiet success. I'm not here to ruin your engagement party, Ashley, I said, meeting her gaze directly. I'm here to ruin the narrative that I am somehow less than you, less successful, less worthy, less important. That ends tonight. I clicked to the final slide, which displayed a legal notice. I filed a lawsuit seeking $500,000 in restitution for the financial fraud and emotional abuse I've suffered, not because I need the money, but because actions should have consequences. You're all served. With that, I set down the remote and walked toward the exit. As I passed my mother, I paused briefly. I forgive you, I said quietly, but forgiveness doesn't mean I'll allow the abuse to continue. The ballroom erupted into chaos behind me as I walked out with my head held high, feeling truly seen for the first time in my life. The following weeks were a whirlwind. News of what happened at the engagement party spread quickly through our social circle. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from relatives and friends, some expressing support, others demanding explanations, a few attempting to broker peace. I answered none of them. Instead, I focused on my business, my legal case, and most importantly, my own healing. On December 2nd, my lawsuit was officially filed, naming my parents and Ashley as defendants in a case of financial fraud and emotional abuse. The evidence was overwhelming, and Jessica assured me our position was strong. What I hadn't anticipated was how quickly my personal story would resonate with others. Someone at the party, I never discovered who, had recorded my presentation and shared clips on social media. The videos went viral, with thousands of comments from people who had experienced similar family dynamics. Ashley's carefully cultivated influencer image took a devastating hit. Within a week, she'd lost over 100,000 followers as the truth about her character spread across the platforms she'd once dominated. Her sponsors began pulling out, unwilling to be associated with someone branded as manipulative and exploitative. Rather than accepting responsibility, Ashley lashed out, posting a series of increasingly unhinged rants about how I was jealous and mentally unstable. Each post only dug her hole deeper until Jessica sent a cease and desist letter threatening additional legal action for defamation. The posts stopped immediately. My parents' reaction was more complex. My father called repeatedly, leaving voicemails that evolved from angry demands to tearful apologies. My mother remained defiant at first, insisting I had misinterpreted everything and betrayed the family. But as the evidence mounted and public opinion turned decidedly against them, her tone changed. "We only wanted what was best for you," she claimed in her final message before I blocked her number. "We never thought you could achieve so much on your own." That, perhaps, was the most honest thing she'd ever said to me. They never believed in me. They never saw my potential. And in underestimating me so completely, they had lost me forever. By mid-January, the strain had taken its toll on my parents' marriage. I learned through family channels that they had filed for divorce on January 15th. My father moved out of the family home, reportedly staying with his brother while he reassessed his priorities. I felt no satisfaction in their pain, only a quiet sadness for what could have been if they had chosen love and honesty over manipulation and favoritism. As for me, I was finally free to live authentically. I no longer needed to hide my success or diminish myself to make others comfortable. I expanded Cozy Crafts LLC, opening a small retail location in Denver where local artisans could showcase their work alongside my own designs. In a surprising turn of events, Thomas offered me a partnership position at Pinnacle Marketing Group, acknowledging that my business acumen and entrepreneurial success made me too valuable to remain a simple employee. "I don't want to lose you entirely," he said during a lunch meeting in late January, "but I understand if you need to focus on your own ventures now." I considered his offer carefully. "I've spent too long hiding my light," I told him. "I think it's time to see how brightly it can shine without constraints." Thomas nodded, understanding immediately. "The offer remains open if you ever change your mind. And Madeline, I'm proud of you, for all of it." Those words meant more than any family approval I had ever sought. In March, I made the decision to relocate to Seattle, drawn by its vibrant arts community and the opportunity to expand Cozy Crafts into a new market. I purchased a beautiful craftsman house overlooking the water, with a dedicated studio space where I could work on new designs. The legal case was settled out of court in April. My parents and Ashley agreed to the full restitution amount plus legal fees, no doubt eager to avoid the public spectacle of a trial. I donated the entire sum to a nonprofit supporting victims of financial abuse, turning my pain into purpose. Ashley's influencer career never recovered. I heard through mutual connections that she had taken a job at Target, a fact that would have once been shared with mockery in our family circle, but I felt no urge to gloat. There was dignity in honest work, in rebuilding, in facing consequences and growing from them. I hoped she would find her way to authentic happiness, even if our paths would never cross again. As for my parents, they reached out periodically with tentative attempts at reconciliation. I remained cordial but distant, unwilling to rush back into relationships that had caused so much damage. Perhaps someday we might find a new way to connect, one based on mutual respect rather than the toxic dynamics of the past. But I was in no hurry to find out. In Seattle, I built a new support network, a chosen family of friends, colleagues, and mentors who valued me for exactly who I was. People who celebrated my successes without feeling threatened by them, who offered honest feedback without cruelty, who showed me what healthy relationships actually looked like. And then, at a business conference in November, I met James. He was a keynote speaker on ethical entrepreneurship. His passion for creating businesses that prioritized people over profit immediately capturing my attention. We connected over coffee after his talk, and the conversation flowed so naturally that neither of us noticed the conference center emptying around us. James had his own story of family complications and finding his way to success despite, rather than because of, his upbringing. He understood my journey without me having to explain the complex emotions involved. "It takes extraordinary strength to break cycles," he told me during our third date, his hand warm around mine as we walked along the Seattle waterfront. "To see clearly what was done to you and choose a different path forward. Sometimes strength just looks like survival," I replied, "until one day, it becomes something more." With James, I found a partnership based on mutual respect, shared values, and genuine care. He wasn't intimidated by my success. He celebrated it, just as I celebrated his. We built something beautiful together, a relationship that healed old wounds rather than creating new ones. Looking back now, I can see that day in the marble hallway of Pinnacle's Denver office for what it truly was. Not a moment of humiliation, but a catalyst for transformation. When Thomas chased me down that hallway, begging me to reconsider my resignation, he wasn't seeing a broken woman. He was seeing someone finally stepping into her power. I walked out that day thinking I was humiliated. I told James one evening as we sat on our deck, watching the sunset over Puget Sound. But I came back with everything I ever deserved, and then some. I had always believed hard work and loyalty were what mattered most. Now I know that self-respect, boundaries, and truth are equally important. Sometimes the most loyal thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from those who cannot see your worth. My name is Madeline Collins. I'm no longer invisible, and my story is just beginning.